Human impacts on the environment. We're going to look at 3 ways that humans impact ecosystems. We're going to look at the greenhouse effect, acid rain, and eutrophication. We studied the carbon cycle, and when we studied the carbon cycle, we learned that humans use fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are burned for energy, and when that happens, that releases large amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now, carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. So is methane and water vapor. Greenhouse gases trap heat in our atmosphere. The greenhouse effect is heating of the earth due to accumulation of these gases in the atmosphere. So greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, in the atmosphere trap heat, and that's called the greenhouse effect. And here's what it looks like in a diagram. Energy from the sun reaches the earth and warms the earth. Then the earth re-radiates that heat back out into space, especially at night. But some of that heat gets trapped by the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and that keeps the earth warmer than it would be otherwise. Now that's a good thing, because if we didn't have the greenhouse effect, then during the daytime it might be 200 or 300 degrees on the daylight side of Earth, and at night the night side of Earth would cool off to 200 or 300 degrees below zero, and life couldn't exist on Earth under those conditions. So the greenhouse effect is a good thing. It helps keep the Earth habitable by life. Now, humans have been disturbing the carbon cycle, like we said a minute ago, by burning fossil fuels. And since the Industrial Revolution, we've put huge amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels like oil, coal, and natural gas. If we look at a graph here, we can see that back in 1850, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, we put very little carbon in the form of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But now we're putting huge amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now, scientists have been able to go back and reconstruct the history of our atmosphere pretty accurately over the last 500,000 years using ice cores from glaciers in places like Greenland and Antarctica and so forth. And what they found is that the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has regularly gone up and down. What they also found by going back and reconstructing the temperature of the Earth by using tree rings and other things is that the temperature of the Earth also has gone up and down over the last 500,000 years. But what's interesting is that when carbon dioxide is high, so is the temperature. And when carbon dioxide is low, temperature goes down. So Earth's temperature and the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere are related. So scientists have looked at the Earth's climate in the past, and whenever there's been a lot of carbon dioxide, the Earth is warmed up. So it's very likely that the Earth's climate will get warmer in the future because of all the carbon dioxide that humans have put in the atmosphere. And if we go back and we look at global temperatures, these are these colored bars, over the last couple hundred years, and we plot the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, we see that as carbon dioxide has gone up, the Earth's temperature has gone up. It's likely that the Earth is going to warm up in your lifetime, but it's not something to panic about. Over the course of Earth's history, since life evolved on Earth, Earth's temperature has gone up and down quite a bit. And if we look at this graph, we can see there's been times when Earth's temperature has been cold and hot. These are the ice ages These are the ice ages in the past. In fact, we're coming out of a big ice age right now. So our temperature is relatively low compared to what it has been over Earth's history. What exactly is going to happen? Well, we're going to find out. Sea level will rise as Earth's temperature rises, but if we look at present sea levels today, they're lower than they have been for most of the time that life has existed on Earth. So push pause, answer the following questions, and when you're ready, push play. So what is a greenhouse gas? A greenhouse gas is a gas that traps heat in the atmosphere. What is an example of a greenhouse gas? Well, of course, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and methane are three of the most important. What is the greenhouse effect? The greenhouse effect is that greenhouse gases trap heat in the atmosphere and keep the Earth's climate warmer than it would be otherwise. How are people changing the greenhouse effect? Well, we're putting large amounts of carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, in the atmosphere, and that's increasing the greenhouse effect. And number 5, what's likely to happen to Earth's climate due to human activity? Well, because we're increasing the greenhouse effect, we're liable to have the Earth warm up. Let's talk about acid rain. Pollutants from burning fossil fuels can make rain acid. Pollutants are transported by the wind from where the pollutants are produced to other regions. So in other words, pollutants that are produced to the west of us in West Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, those pollutants are transported by the winds to the east. So they end up over us. And lakes and forests at high altitudes can become acidic very quickly due to acid rain. Here's a diagram to explain what's happening. Here's a power plant that's producing pollutants due to burning of fossil fuels. These pollutants are carried to the east because in the United States our winds blow from the west to the east, so power plants in the western part of the United States produce these pollutants. The winds carry them over to us. The pollutants mix with moisture in the clouds and produce acids. And when it rains or snows, the rain or snow becomes acid and falls to the ground. Now that acid rain can damage forests and aquatic ecosystems. Water becomes toxic to fish in streams and lakes that receive a lot of acid rain, and forests can be harmed by acid rain as well. Here's a picture of some trees that are dying because of acid rain, and we have a lot of problems with acid rain in the eastern part of the United States, especially along the Appalachian Mountains. The effects of acid rain are worse at higher altitudes. Now, the good news about acid rain is that because of improvements in pollution controls, acid rain has gotten better and better over the years. It's not nearly the problem that it was 30 years ago. So push pause, answer these questions, and when you're ready, push play. What causes acid rain? Pollutants from burning fossil fuels mix with moisture in the clouds and produce acidic precipitation, acid rain, acid snow. Does acid rain only occur close to its sources? No. Pollutants are carried from west to east by the prevailing winds, so we get pollutants from other states that blow over us and then fall as acid rain. What effects does acid rain cause? Well, it destroys aquatic ecosystems, kills fish and other aquatic life, and damages forests, and these effects are especially bad at high altitudes, like in our Appalachian Mountains. Eutrophication is a problem that results when raw sewage and excess fertilizer end up in surface runoff. So here's what happens. Raw sewage, excess fertilizer, animal waste from farms and poultry farms ends up in waterways because of runoff. It acts as a fertilizer for algae in the water. It causes the algae to grow faster. When the algae grows in the water, it shades plants that are growing on the bottom of the lake or stream or the Chesapeake Bay and cuts off their light. Eventually the algae die and some of the aquatic plants die. When they die, of course, they're decomposed by bacteria in the water. As the bacteria in the water decompose the dead algae and plants, they use up the oxygen in the water. So the amount of oxygen in the water falls to low levels, and aquatic animals like fish, crabs, snails suffocate and die. So here's a diagram that shows a river, and as it goes by cities, we get excess fertilizer from people's yards, animal waste from dogs and so forth get into the water and get into the river. The river flows by agricultural areas, and fertilizer from farm fields washes off into the river. We get sewage from sewage treatment plants that ends up in the river. Eventually that ends up in, say, the Chesapeake Bay or a lake or a stream. Here's a picture of a lake that's been affected by eutrophication. Excess nitrogen in the form of animal waste, excess fertilizer, has caused this algae to grow to excessive levels. This algae is going to die. When it dies, decomposers, bacteria in the water, are going to decompose it, use up all the oxygen in the water, and the fish will die. Here's an aerial shot of the Chesapeake Bay. We can see the Susquehanna River here. Here's our Potomac River. Here's all these other rivers, the James and so forth, that feed into the bay. Well, they're all collecting excess fertilizer, sewage, and other waste products that act as fertilizer, and they're dumping them in the bay. So in the summertime, we get big algae blooms in the bay. This algae is going to die. It's going to be decomposed by bacteria in the water. The oxygen levels in the water will drop because the decomposers use up the oxygen, and then fish, crabs, and oysters and so forth are going to suffer for that. Well, the same thing happens along the Gulf Coast of the United States. This is the Gulf Coast, this is Louisiana, Mississippi, and so forth. And everywhere that a river flows into the Gulf, you see these big plumes of algae growing because of excess fertilizer and so forth that get dumped into the Gulf of Mexico. This algae is going to die, it's going to be decomposed in the water, that's going to use up the oxygen, and fish are not able to really survive very well in these areas. So push pause, answer the questions, and when you're ready, listen to the answers. What are two causes of eutrophication? Raw sewage, animal waste, excess fertilizer. Those are three causes. How does increased algae in the water harm aquatic animal life? Well, the excess algae is going to die. When it dies, it's going to be decomposed by bacteria in the water. The bacteria in the water are going to use up all the oxygen. The water will be low in oxygen, and aquatic animals won't be able to survive.